Today I'm going to show you some scary headlines because there's a big war going on at Iran, correct? And the headline read, investors are flocking to safety as the world awaits Iran's response. Traders are forecasting a drop in stocks, and the reason could be because crude oil prices are going up again. This is in the wake of US attack on Iran's 3 main nuclear sites. In fact, there is even more reports suggesting that the oil price surge may be worse than expected. Goldman Sachs warns of oil price surge, and their forecast is $110 per barrel, which is a 40% jump from today's price. Now, so should you sell stocks and go and buy oil? Today I'm going to answer that question because I have key findings that you may not have known of, and those could impact your decision making. So continue watching. Hi guys, welcome back. Let's do a quick recap as to what has happened, and towards the end I'll give you 3 reasons as to why I believe oil prices will not skyrocket like what Goldman Sachs is suggesting. Before that disclaimer, everything presented is from my own research and my own interpretation. War is always very fickle and things can escalate or de-escalate faster than what we would imagine. So with that clear, let's start with a recap on crude oil prices. Ever since Israel has started this war with Iran, crude oil prices have been inching upwards. As you can see over here, 5-month high, and that's because maybe there needs to be some proximity risk to war because Saudi Arabia, which is one of the biggest oil producers, is just around the corner. So pricing in that risk is actually reasonable. So this tension is between just 2 countries in the Middle East until something happened very recently. Mainstream media did not pick up on this, but actually stealth bombers were moving already from US towards Europe, basing there for a while, and then attacking Iran. Actually, I'm going to produce an episode to give you an update on war because I picked up on this news. But before I can produce it, Donald Trump has already launched his bombing on the nuclear sites, and he's bragging about it right now.
I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
And by the way, this is not the first attack that US has done on Iran. Back in January 2020, just before COVID became a pandemic, US actually assassinated a top Iranian intelligence commander at Baghdad's international airport. Same thing as what we see now, bombing in foreign soil, and the question becomes how will Iran respond? If we were to look back at this situation, this actually could give us some clues as to how Iran might react. Of course, they will need to promise retaliation, but with hindsight, now we can see that their retaliation was also very calculated and very muted. It didn't become a full-scale war against US, which they probably guessed they can't win. So a small attack back on US could be an end result, but news has recently reported that some Iranian officials have given a green light to block the Straits of Hormuz. That is retaliation part 2 and could inflict some damage to US and the global economy. I've covered before this risk on this channel, and Strait of Hormuz right now ships 20% of all oil supplies around the world. Some of the world's most important oil producers, such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran themselves, Qatar and UAE all export their oil in tankers through this strait. That is the key reason why Goldman Sachs is warning of a big oil price surge. And by the way, if this were to come true, that means that inflation could go up, very similar to what we see in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine and there was an oil supply shock. My guess, however, is that it's not going to be as serious, and I have 3 key points. Before I share that with you, I invite you to smash the like button because I'm filming this late night. Press the subscribe also to support this channel. Thank you very much, and let me share with you the first reason. When we study back in history, we realize that Iran has been in many wars. Some attacks have been from US, as mentioned just now, and they have never really closed the Straits of Hormuz. Is that a threat? Is that something they would like to do? Or at least demonstrate to their people that they are considering it as a punishment? But again, they do not have exclusive control over the straits. UAE and Oman are also sharing the straits, and of course, there's going to be resistance. It doesn't mean that they cannot do disturbances such as doing hijacking, such as doing attacks on ships over there to disrupt the shipping routes. That is different from closing the straits totally, which is what is mentioned, which could be a worst case scenario. Reason number 2 as to why oil price may not spike. Unlike in 2022, the person right now in conflict is Iran, and they are much smaller in the oil market. Iran is the 5th biggest player, but you see 2022, that involved Russia. Russia is the 3rd biggest exporter in the world, almost 3 times the size of Iran. Sanctioning Russia meant that a big portion of the oil supply was off the market, and that's why oil price had good reasons to rally in price back in 2022. The third reason as to why Iran might not fully shut off Strait of Hormuz and cause the worst case scenario to happen, China. Take a look at these headlines over here. US urges China to dissuade Iran from closing Straits of Hormuz, reported by Straits Times. Also reported on CNBC, US also calling China to prevent Iran from closing Straits of Hormuz. Why is US calling China? Is China really so powerful to prevent or dissuade or threaten Iran from ever trying that? I think there are good reasons. The first is that China actually has ties with Iran, and they've actually signed a 25-year strong cooperation deal involving energy, infrastructure, and military cooperation. China is right now Iran's biggest customer, and they are not only supporting Iran financially, they are even providing military support. Widely speculated right now, there are mystery flights from China very recently on 19 June towards Iran, and 5 flights are reported to have taken off from China, flying along Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and then falling off the radar as it neared Iran. These mystery flights were destined for Luxembourg, but they never actually flew into European skies. That's why there's speculation whether China is indirectly supporting Iran by transporting military equipment and weapons. If indeed China is indeed a strong influence over Iran, financially as well as military, naturally they have big influence over Iran, correct? And that's why if there's someone that Iran needs to listen to, at least in terms of point of view, it could be China. China needs Iran's oil, and closing their straits will be directly against their interests. It seems increasingly that China might want to sustain Iran's war for them, similar to how they have supported many countries in the One Belt One Road system, so that these countries become indebted to China and China can maintain its influence in different parts of the world. I'll leave that to a future story. This video was released early on the private members channel. If you'd like to support, join over there. All proceeds will be donated towards the Georgetown bursary. Join our family not here but also in Telegram, whereby we have constructive discussions on financial topics. And I'd like to conclude by drawing back our key topic for today, which is, should you flock towards safety? Possibly not a good idea. Should you expect oil price to surge massively? As what I've suggested, probably quite unlikely. Let me know whether you agree with my conclusions, and as always, thank you for watching right to the very end. Check out some of my previous videos that can help you navigate turbulent times like these, especially when news shows scary headlines and stock markets start to swing a little bit. These could be times to invest well, and hopefully you do so. With that, sign off from here. See you in these videos. Take care again, and goodbye.